Good day, boys and girls. Welcome to Grade 11 Hospitality Studies Guidance class. This class will be on revision, and I'm also going to explain to you what you can expect in your exam paper during the June exam. The topics that I will discuss in this class is all the formal assessments in Grade 11 for Term 2. I'm going to go through all the exam work that you need to study for the exam that's laying ahead. And then I'm also going to go through a past June exam paper to do some revision. All the formal assessments for Grade 11 for Term 2 are the following. You need to do Task 3, that is the June examination, and it's going to count 75% of your term mark. You also need to do Task 4, that includes 3 practical lessons and 1 skills test, and that's going to count 25%. And then you need to do Task 9.1 and 9.2, which is the waiter's pad work. The work that you need to study for the exam that's laying ahead is the following. All the work that you've been studying during Term 1, that includes Chapter 7, which is on significance of South African culinary uniqueness. Chapter 8, which is on menu planning. Chapter 10, that is bread products and the using of yeast. Chapter 20, that is the restaurant preparations and table setting. Chapter 11, which is on cakes and biscuits. Chapter 9, that is food costing. Chapter 1, that's the kitchen brigade as well as the restaurant brigade. And then also all the work that you've been discussing during Term 2. It includes Chapter 12, which is on spices, herbs, condiments and flavoring. Chapter 21, that's the types of services. Chapter 22, that is on the service of food. Chapter 16 is on fish. Chapter 17, it's everything regarding poultry, and then Chapter 13 and 15, which is on stocks and sauces. You know that an exam or a test can be very stressful. Therefore, you need to be prepared for the exam that's laying ahead, because when you're stressing, you can't do well. So ensure that you do the following: get enough sleep, avoid topics that you do dislike, fill yourself with good food, flex your body and your mind by doing some exercise or do some relaxation work, avoid negative vibes, and then also you need to schedule in a treat for yourself. The best place to study is definitely not on your bed. When you are studying on your bed, there's no proper blood flow to your brain. And if your brain doesn't receive enough blood, there's not going to be enough oxygen in your brain that will help you to memorize the work that you are busy studying. So the best place to study is definitely not on your bed, but sit on a good chair that supports your spine behind a desk where everything is close by that you will need to study. You need to start studying in advance to ensure that you've been able to go through all the work before you have to write the exam. Here are a few ways how to study for the exams. Trying to stay as calm as possible, because when you're stressing, you can't memorize the work as good as possible. You need to gather all your materials that's needed to study, all your textbooks and notes. Put away your cell phone because it can distract your attention. Make a list of all the topics that you need to study and tick them off once you're done with that topic to ensure that you've been studying everything. You need to study in a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed. And then also prepare yourself for the exam. Sleep well to boost your memory. And then on the day of the exam, try to get up early and get everything ready to start writing. The first page of your exam paper will be something like the one on the screen. This is last year's June examination cover page. Make sure that it is the Hospitality Studies Grade 11 Task 3 June exam 2023. Then it is also important to ensure that you do add your unique barcoded cover page if you're going to send in your paper to Impact to be marked. The paper also needs to be printed in color because there's going to be a lot of pictures in your exam paper, and it's always better to see if the picture is colored. The first page of your paper will be a paper where all the instructions is indicated. Now, the instructions are the following. You need to take note of the time allocation of your paper, which is 2 hours, and the total marks will be 150. The paper will consist out of 4 sections and 4 questions. So ensure that your paper is complete by looking for all 4 sections, which is section A, contextual questions, section B, that's a nutrition, menu planning and food commodities, section C, that's on nutrition, menu planning and also food commodities, and then section D will be on the sector's careers, food and beverage service. Read through all the questions before you start writing. That will ensure that you do get a complete insight in the paper, and it will also give you an idea of what you can expect to answer. Number your questions as indicated in the paper. Try to write neatly and legibly, and start each question on a new page. And when you are writing, please make use of a blue ballpoint pen to ensure that it can be properly scanned. Let's start looking at last year's June exam, and we're going to start off with the section A, that is the contextual questions. The first question will be a multiple choice question where 4 options is given after the question has been asked. For example, 1.1.1, here you need to calculate the mass of 350 mils cake flour, and then they've also given you the ratio between 250 mils cake flour that equals 120 grams. Now for this question, you need to have your calculator with you to help you to calculate the question. It can either be A, 160 grams, B, 165 grams, C, 168 grams, or D, 170 grams. If you've been calculated correctly, the correct answer will be C, 168 grams. Question 1.1.2, umqombothi. Now, what is umqombothi? It's a deep fried balls of dough, sour porridge made of sorghum, C, samp mixed with sugar beans, or D, beer made of maize, sorghum, and yeast. Now, to be able to answer this question, you need to know the culinary uniqueness of South Africa, and the correct answer to this question is D, it's beer that's made from maize, sorghum, and yeast. 1.1.3, sift the dry ingredients, add the oil, egg yolks, and liquid. Beat until well mixed, fold in the stiffly beaten egg whites. Now here you need to distinguish the mixing method that has been explained. To be able to answer this question, you need to know the different mixing methods. And in the case of this question, the correct one will be B, the chiffon method. 1.1.4, a mixture of cream and egg yolks used to slightly thicken sauces. To be able to answer this question, you need to know what agents can be used to thicken sauces. And in the case of this question, where cream and egg yolks has been used, it is the correct answer A, a liaison. 1.1.5, a reduction of vinegar that's thickened with egg yolks and then gradually adding clarified butter. The correct answer to this question is A, it's a hollandaise sauce. So you can clearly see that you need to know the names of the sauces as well as how to make these different sauces. Question 1.2, here you need to match the description in column B to the condiment in column A. And you only write the correct letter A to H next to the question number. Let's do the first one, a French mustard. The correct answer is It is G. It's mustard, flour, water, and vinegar. Now, a good way to answer these questions is once you're done with one of these terms or condiments, you can scratch it out as well as the description because you've already used it, so you know that you don't need to use it again. Tabasco. What is Tabasco? It is E. It's chilies, vinegar, salt, which is aged in barrels for 3 years. Worcester sauce. What is Worcester sauce? It is B. It's a fermented sauce that's made from molasses, anchovies, and tamarind extract. Chutney. Chutney is a typical South African condiment, and chutney is F. F is chopped fruits that are cooked in sugar and vinegar. And then lastly, what is balsamic vinegar? It is A. It's a reduction of white grape juice that is fermented and aged in wooden casks. Question 1.3. Here you need to look at all the pictures of the different fish cuts, and they've also given you the names of the cuts, and all that you need to do is you need to pair the name of the cut with the picture that was given. Now, for this question, you need to know the different fish cuts and how they look like. So you need to know the names of the fish cuts as well as their appearance. Now, let's look at the first picture. It's a fish fillet that has been rolled, and this is called La Paupette. The next one, 1.3.2, this is Le Suprême. 1.3.3, this is Le Tronçon. 1.3.4 is Le Don, and then 1.3.5 is Les Gajons. This question, you need to identify the herb and the spice below. So to answer this question, you need to know the names of the different herbs as well as how they do look like. Now the first one, 1.3.1, this is the basil. 1.3.2, if you know them, it is mint. 1.3.3, this is a very famous type of herb to use. It is parsley. You can clearly see the small curly leaves. 1.3.4, this is the bark of the tree, and this is cinnamon. And then 1.3.5, it can either be ginger or it can be turmeric. The reason why there's two options is because the pictures aren't printed in color. So if it been color printed, this picture over here, and it was white, it would have been ginger, and if it been yellow, it would have been turmeric. But now you can't see the color, therefore it can be one of those two. 1.5, here you need to identify the type of glass, crockery, and utensils in the pictures below, and you need to write down the name of them. Now the first one, you can clearly see it is a bigger glass than the next one in 1.5.2. So the bigger glass is the red wine glass, the smaller glass is the white wine glass, and then the tall glass is the champagne or the sparkling wine glass. This picture over here, 1.5.4, is a cake lifter, and 1.5.5 is a coffee pot, and 1.5.6 is a milk jug. 1.4, here you need to read that the station waiter has the following responsibilities. Choose the responsibilities and write the 5 correct letters, A to I, next to the question. Now you need to take note, they've only asked for 5 correct letters. So the markers are only going to mark the first 5 letters. If you've been writing 6 and the 6th one is correct, it's not going to be marked. So ensure that your first 5 letters are the correct ones. The correct ones are A, greet the guests. B, serve the guests and clear. D, takes the guest's orders. G, present the guest with bill and receives the money. And then H, the station waiter is in control of a station with 20 to 36 covers. 1.5. This is the typical question that you've seen in all your papers. Here you need to give one word or phrase for each of the following descriptions, and you only need to write down the correct name or phrase. 1. A person living on products of plant origin and does not eat any parts of the flesh of an animal. It's a vegetarianism. 2. A refreshing palate cleanser. This is known as a sorbet. And a sorbet is a frozen, over here I've added a picture, a frozen fruit juice, usually a little bit of sour taste, and that helps to refresh your palate between courses so that your palate's able to taste the food of the next course better. The actual price that is paid for a specific ingredient used in a dish or a menu. This is known as the unit price or the costs of the ingredients. The process by which yeast converts sugar and starch to alcohol and carbon dioxide. This is known as fermentation. Very important question. 1.5.5, a mixture of chocolate and cream traditionally used to coat a sagetorte. Over here I've added a picture of a sagetorte, and you can clearly see the chocolate and the cream that was poured over the cake, and this is called a ganache. All right, the next question, 6. Traditional French herb blend that is finely chopped. This is called finis herbs. Number 7. A mixture of coarsely chopped onions, celery, and carrots. Over here you can clearly see how they do look like. This is known as a mirepoix. Number 8. This term indicates that the olives are cold pressed to extract oil and no heat or chemicals are used during this process. This is known as virgin olive oil. The French term for custard made with egg yolks, sugar, and milk. This is known as a crème anglaise. And then lastly, herring that is pickled in vinegar, deboned, rolled, and screwed. Over here I've added a picture of that dish. It is known as roll mops. We're going to go on to section B now. This is on nutrition, menu planning, and the food commodities. Question 2, here you need to study the menu below, and you have to answer the questions that follow. The menu consists out of a lunch menu. The starter is smoked snook salad with mayonnaise. The main course is a chicken cordon bleu with a cheese sauce, baked potato wedges, oven roasted root vegetables, as well as green beans with a garlic butter. The dessert is a Swiss roll with an egg custard, and remember the egg custard is also known as a crème anglaise. 2.1.1, here you need to classify the type of menu, but please don't stop reading there. You also need to give 2 reasons for your answer. So firstly, this question will count 3 marks. Firstly, you need to mention the type of menu. It is a top dirt menu. And then you need to give 2 reasons why you've said it is a top dirt menu. Any 2 of the following. It's a set menu or a set number of courses. The entire menu has a set price. The food is prepared in advance and served on a specific time. And then none or limited, only 2 to 3 choices of dishes during each course. Question 2.1.2. Explain how the chef will store the snook before it is prepared. Now, to explain, you need to write full sentences. You can't just write down one word. The marker can't read your mind. So please make sure that you do make use of full sentences. It must be stored on crushed ice between -1 and 1 degrees Celsius, in a cool room or a fridge. Keep the fish moist, neatly packed or sealed, and it needs to be cleaned without heads, scales, and fins. 2.1.3, here you need to identify the truly South African ingredient in the menu. Here you need to know what ingredients are typically South African, and the only typical South African ingredient in the whole menu is the snook. Over here is an example of how a snook looks like. It's the type of fish that you will only find in the oceans around the coastlines of South Africa. Right, 2.1.4. The chicken cordon bleu is made of a deboned chicken breast. List 2 benefits of deboning a chicken. Only 2. If you've been writing down 3, only the first 2 will be marked. It can be 2 of the following. The meat is cooked evenly. It can easily be filled or stuffed to stretch the portions. You can yield more portions from that dish. It's easier to cut into portions. Bones can be used to cook stocks and soups. Interesting dishes can be made or created, but not. It is easier for the guests to eat. Definitely not. 2.2, you have to prepare a Swiss roll in the practical class. Identify the mixing method used to prepare a Swiss roll. So you need to know the mixing methods and the type of dishes in which you have to use these mixing methods. It's the sponge cake method that has been used for a Swiss roll. The next question, 2.2.2, explain step by step how the mixing method mentioned in 2.2.1 should be performed. So here you need to know how to execute the sponge cake method. There is 4 steps and it needs to be in the correct order, step by step. The first step, the eggs are separated. The next step, whisk together the egg yolks and the sugar until it's pale yellow and fluffy. The next step, sift the dry ingredients and fold it into the mixture. And the last step will be whisk the egg whites to stiff peaks and fold them into the mixture. These are the 4 steps in the correct order. If your order is not correct, you're not going to receive marks for that. The next question is, discuss what the sabayon entails in the sponge cake method. Now here you need to know what is the meaning of the term sabayon. The correct answer to this question is, it is where you beat the egg yolks and you add the sugar little by little and you beat it until it's light and foamy. You need to beat it up to the ribbon stage. For 2 marks, 2 of these things that I've just mentioned needs to be in your answer. Right, the next question is, a Swiss roll gets a filling as a finishing touch. Distinguish between a filling and an icing or a frosting. So you need to know what is a filling and what is a frosting or an icing. And you need to give the same topic in both of them. For example, the correct answer is, a filling is on the inside of the product, while icing or a frosting is on the outside or around the product. 2.3, sauces are an important component of any menu. Classify mayonnaise by referring specifically to the ingredient of the sauce. Please make sure that you do read the keywords as I've underlined them. For 3 marks, you need to mention 3 of the following things. It is a cold sauce. It's a mixture of oil and egg yolks. Or to form it a cold emulsion sauce, or you can also need to write down, it's where you beat the egg yolks and you add flavorings and vinegar together and you gradually whisk in the oil. 2.3.2, identify the sauce used as a base to make a cheese sauce. Now in this case you need to know what is the base sauce or the mother sauce that has been used to make cheese sauce from. Now the mother sauce or the base sauce is a bechamel sauce. A bechamel sauce is a French word for a typical white sauce. Right, the next question, 2.3.3, refer to the sauce mentioned in 2.3.2 and identify the following. What is the thickening agent that has been used in a bechamel sauce? So you need to know how to make a bechamel sauce, and you start off by making a roux. A roux consists out of a mixture of melted butter or margarine, and you add the flour to that. It's a white roux. Then what is the liquid used in a bechamel sauce? It is milk. Question 4, this is a question on costing. This is a very, very important topic in a question paper, and you're definitely going to receive a question on calculations of ingredients, either their cost or the portion costs. For this question, you need to calculate the cost per portion for the ingredients mentioned in the table below, as well as the cost per portion of the chicken croquettes. Write down the calculations, so you need to explain or write down how to get to your answer. An answer alone is not going to be marked correctly. You need to explain by means of writing down the formula as well as all your calculations. How did you go about to get to your answer? They've also given you the ratio between milliliters and grams of margarine as well as cake flour, because you need to convert and make sure that you know how to convert. The conversion formula I've added here at the top to convert is to ensure that all your units are in the same ones. You can't make use of grams and milliliters in the same calculation. You have to ensure that all your units are the same. And then you need to calculate the cost per ingredient, firstly, of the margarine, the flour, the milk, the onions, and the chicken fillet by making use of this formula. So please make sure that you do write down the formula, the whole calculation process, as well as how did you get about to get to your final answer. Then also you need to calculate the cost per portion. Per portion is where you need to serve a specific amount to a person. Now you will see that this recipe yields 6 chicken croquettes, and you're going to serve 1 croquette to each person, so your final answer needs to be divided by 6 to get to the price for 1 portion. Over here is all the calculations in this discussion. I'm not going to explain to you how did I go or how did the memo go about to get to the answers. You can go through them on your own time. 2.5, here 4 pictures has been given, and you need to identify the processes that's performed by the pastry chef. The first one, you can clearly see a dough brush is used to brush some egg wash on top of these pies. Now this whole process is known as glazing, when you brush egg wash on top of a product before you bake it. 2.5.2, this is where a razor blade is used to scratch the surface of a dough mixture to form patterns on it. This is known as scoring. Over here, 2.5.3, a fork is used to prick little holes in the base of the lined pie dish. This process is known as docking. Then you also need to list the functions of salt in food. Salt is a very, very important ingredient in any dish. Salt do have the ability to enhance the flavor of the dish. It enhances sweetness, bitterness, sourness, as well as saltiness. It can also help to preserve the food, improves the shelf life or the quality of the product. It improves the texture of these products. It binds processed meat. It develops color in certain processed meats, and it also controls the fermentation process in his products. Section C, this is on nutrition, menu planning, and food commodities. And the first one was on stock, is a flavored liquid that serves as a base for some soups and sauces. The first question is you need to motivate why it is better to use instant stock over homemade stock. So over here is a picture of instant stock. It's in powder form or dry form. You just need to add boiling water. Now it can be 3 of the following. It saves time, it's much faster. Homemade stocks cooks very long. It saves labor because you just need to add the boiling water, and it also produces a consistent product. Will be the same every time that you've been using it. 3.1.2, you need to describe the properties of a good quality stock. Describe means full sentences, don't just write down a word. It can be 3 of the following. Remember, it's for 3 marks. It is not cloudy, it's not greasy, there's no impurities in it, it does have the correct fullness, it do have a pleasant taste, and it do have a characteristic flavor or color. 3.1.3, here you need to distinguish between a mirepoix and a matignon. Now discuss the same topic as I've already told you. In the case of both these words, you can make use of the difference between them when it comes to the ingredients. Now a mirepoix is a mixture of chopped onions, leeks and carrots, while a matignon is a mixture of chopped onions, leeks and carrots, and mushrooms and bacon pieces can be added for flavor. 3.2. You are appointed as the fish chef at the Ocean Basket. You should give the learner chef guidelines on cooking and purchasing the fish and the seafood. In full sentences, explain the effect of heat on hake for 4 marks. So 4 things needs to be mentioned. What happens to the hake when you cook it? The proteins coagulate. In other words, the proteins become cooked and become stiff. Collagen is in the connective tissue changes to gelatin. The flesh turns from translucent to white. The flesh separates from the into flakes, and the flesh also separates from the bone. And if you add too much heat, it will harden and toughen the flesh. 3.2.2. You need to evaluate whether it's necessary to remove the vein from a shrimp before you cook it. When you need to evaluate, you need to tell, is it good to remove it or isn't it good to remove it, and why? In full sentences, what do you think? Over here you can clearly see the black vein in the middle part of a shrimp. Yes, it is necessary to remove that vein, 1 mark. And then you also need to tell why you've said yes. The digestive tract contributes to a muddy taste because that black line or black vein is the digestive tract, and it is also full of impurities if it's not removed. Then 3.2.3, there are certain aspects to take into consideration concerning the appearance of fish when purchasing fresh fish. Take note, fresh fish, not frozen fish. Compile a checklist. Boys and girls, a checklist is where you need to tick off, as I've added to this picture. You need to tick off all the topics that has been mentioned. So this is how a checklist look like. To give the storekeeper guidance to pay attention to the appearance of the fish when purchasing fresh fish. So the answers to this question is the eyes must be bright, full and not sunken in. The gills must be bright and red in color. The flesh texture must be firm and resilient. The scales must lie flat, must be moist and plentiful, and the skin should be covered with fresh sea slime or be smooth, moist, and there mustn't be any bruises on it. Then 3.2.4, make 2 suggestions of accompaniments that can be paired with fried fish and chips. What can be served with fried fish and chips? Any of the following, any 2 of the following. You can serve lemon wedges, lemon butter, tartar sauce, garlic sauce, other butter sauces, as well as salads and vegetables. 3.3, there's a wide variety of poultry available in the market. The first question, distinguish between organic and free-range chickens. When you need to extinguish, you need to differentiate between what is an organic and what is a free-range chicken. Organic chickens receive no growth stimulants or certain antibiotics, while free-range chickens are not raised in batteries and are allowed to roam freely, and they can eat outside anything they like to. Number 2, identify 3 game poultry that can be eaten. That is wild birds. It can be 1 of 3 of the following: jenny fowls, pigeons or doves, partridges, pheasants, quails, ostriches, and then also the emu and the rhea. 3.3.3 suggests 3 types of poultry offal that could be served in a traditional South African restaurant. Now, type of offal that can obtain from poultry is the head, their feet or runaways, the gizzards, the heart, the neck, and the liver. 3.3.4, name any 3 chicken cuts that's obtainable in the market. Over here you can clearly see that the chicken carcass can be cut into different cuts. It can be the drumsticks, the thigh, the wings, the breast, the neck, as well as a quarter chicken. 3.4, the COVID pandemic has motivated many people to learn how to bake their own bread at home. Place the following steps in the baking of bread in the correct order. Write only the correct letter in the correct order next to the question number. So you need to know how to mix yeast dough to bake a bread, all the different steps, and you need to write only the letters of the different steps. So the first step will be C, weighing and mixing of the ingredients. Then B, kneading and the first fermentation process. Then E, the knocking and the punching down and the shaping of the dough. And then D, that's the final rise. And lastly A, where you need to bake and cool the bread. It needs to be in the correct order. If it's not in the correct order, you're not going to receive any marks. This section counts 40 marks. The last question. Here you need to explain how to test whether a loaf of bread is baked. Now, it can be 3 of the following. It sounds hollow when the surface of the bread is knocked with your knuckles. It has a pleasant baked, nutty, yeasty smell. And it detached from the sides of the pan. Please take note, a bread's not tested with a testing pin. And you never insert a knife into a bread. Section D is on sectors, careers, food and beverage service. In question 4, you need to study the table below with the positions and titles of the kitchen and the restaurant brigade, and you need to match these positions in the table with the descriptions below. The first one is the chef that oversees the preparing of desserts and cakes. That is the chef pâtissier. The person is an assistant waiter and he acts according to the instructions of the station waiter. This is the commise de rang. The next question 3. This chef is responsible for roasting and oven roasting meat, fish and poultry. Over here you can see how these chickens are going to be roasted in a rôtissier, and that is why this person is called a rôtissier, a chef rôtissier. And then question 4 are highly qualified waiters that specializing in the serving of wine and the combination or pairing of food and wine. So this person is a connoisseur wine steward, and he is known as a sommelier. He do have a very wide knowledge of pairing wine to food. And then 4.1.5, the person that welcomes the guests when they arrive, and he works out the shifts, timetables, and he also supervises basic services in the restaurant. This person is known as the maître de hôtel, also known as the maître d'. The next question is where you need to study the advertisement for an executive sous chef that appeared in a local newspaper, and then you need to answer the questions that follows. You need to read through this whole passage, and then the first question is where you need to identify the position of the executive sous chef in the kitchen brigade. Over here is an example of a kitchen brigade. You need to know who is first in charge, and then all the different partie chefs that's second in charge, and also doing the different tasks in the kitchen. Now, in the case of this advertisement, this person is second in charge in the kitchen. This is known as the sous chef. List the requirements that the candidate must have to apply for the vacant post. Now, he needs to have a formal qualification, good references, 4- and 5-star a la carte experience, good management skills, he must have training skills, he must have his own transport, he You must be computer literate, and you must also be in possession of a driver's license. Then 4.2.3, in full sentences, you need to explain what formal qualifications the advertisement refers to. It refers to university, technicon, or college training, or chef school, and he must also have a diploma or a certificate. 4.3.1 is on the menu above. You need to read through the menu. This is a menu for a dinner. The starter is a tomato and basil soup. The main course is a roasted beef rump with the potatoes and the vegetables, and the dessert is a crepe Suzette. You need to draw a labeled cover for this menu. Now, a cover, boys and girls, is one place setting with all the cutlery on it that's needed for this specific menu. So you have to ensure that there's a side plate with a butter knife on it for the bread. Remember, always bread with soup. There must be an entree knife and fork, and it must be placed at the left side of the guest. Then the main course knife and fork needs to be there. Main course fork must be placed on the left, and the main course knife must be placed on the right side. There needs to be a soup spoon, and it must be placed on the right side of the guest next to the main course knife. And there also needs to be a dessert fork and a dessert spoon. The spoon must be placed on the top, and the handle of the spoon must show to the right, and this fork for the dessert must be underneath the dessert spoon with a handle towards the left. The next question describes step by step the silver serving procedure of bread rolls that's served with a tomato soup. So step by step, what will you do first, then the second step, until the bread's done serving. So any three of the following must be served from the person's left. The ladies must be served first, then the men, and lastly the host. You need to go anti-clockwise around the table. A bread basket is not left on the table. You serve it with a spoon and a fork from the bread basket, and you also place butter on the table. The next question, 3. Explain to the waiters how to present the bill to the guests after the service has been completed. So 3 marks, you need to mention 3 things. It must be placed on the side plate or in a folder or a cover. It must be presented to the host from the left, or it can be placed in the middle of the table if there's no host, or presented from the left. I've already mentioned that, sorry. 4.4, name the serving styles for each of the following. So serving styles has been explained, and you need to give the name of the serving style. The first question, the food that has been plated in the kitchen and then served to the guests is known as plated food or plated service, as you can see on this picture over here. The main course, number 2, and the vegetables are placed in the middle of the table on different platters, and the guests dish up for themselves. This is family service, as you can see over here. The food's placed in the middle of the table, and the guests can help themselves. And then number 3, the food's placed on a separate table away from the guests, and the guests get up and go to dish up for themselves. Over here you can see the guests are busy helping themselves from these dishes. This is known as buffet service. 4.5, as maitre d', it is your responsibility to train the waiters in the restaurant. Evaluate the behavior of the waiters in each of the following scenarios and motivate your answer. Now, when you have to evaluate, you need to specifically indicate it. Is it correct or not? And then you also need to motivate why you've said, yes, it is correct, or no, it is not correct. 4.5.1, the restaurant is quite busy tonight. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson waited 5 minutes at the entrance of the restaurant before someone greeted and assisted them. Is it right or wrong? It is wrong. They had to be recognized within 30 seconds, not 5 minutes after they've arrived at the restaurant. 2 marks, 1 for wrong and 1 for your motivation. Number 2, Simone serves the drinks from her right-hand side from each guest's right side. She moves clockwise around the table. Is it right or wrong? It is wrong. You must move counterwise or anti-clockwise from the host's right-hand side and serve the ladies first, followed by the men, and then lastly the host. Or it can be correct because it's served from the right-hand side. Then number 3, Tabu cleans the crumbs from the table after the dessert using a folded towel, dish towel, and a side plate. Is it right or wrong? It is wrong. This technique needs to be executed before the dessert is served, and you must use a serving cloth or a folded serviette, not a dish towel. And you need to crumble down after the main course has been cleared. Right, boys and girls, it's the end of this paper. You can clearly see the grand total for this paper being 150 marks. If you do have any questions, you can send your questions to info@impact.co.za. I would like to wish each and everyone good luck with the exam that's laying ahead. Thank you and goodbye.